Hi everyone, Tom Slivick. Welcome to News in Depth. Today we're going to have a News in Depth format for our news, and I'm with Sheriff Martin Ryan. How you doing, Sheriff?
I'm doing fine, Tom.
It's always good to talk to you, and we haven't had you as a guest in a while.
It has been a while.
Okay.
Look forward to being here.
And I'm glad that you came by. Of course, we've just had, sheriffs are a lot in the news, maybe not a whole lot, but Sheriff D'Agostini, who was with the Amador Sheriff's Department, who's now the sheriff over in El Dorado, made the news yesterday with writing a letter to Vice President Biden, basically saying that he feels that his job is to uphold the Constitution. We won't get into that, particularly his statement and things like that, but he was in the news because of the recent gun control debate or talks, or debate, not debate, whatever it is. But also we have a sheriff in Missouri, and I believe sheriffs other way, a sheriff in Oregon. So a lot of sheriffs are coming out and making, in a way, letters and making public statements would be when you take that action. I guess trying to uphold the concept of the Constitution. I'm not going to take you there. I don't want to put words in you or drag you into a fight that you don't want to be into. But there's a lot going on right now. A lot of hullabaloo, if I can use a word. A lot of talking about things to make a lot of changes when there really isn't a lot of change going on statistically, and we'll get into that, and I don't want to keep talking forever, so we'll get off and I'll throw you in there. But what triggers all this is a horrific event of Sandy Hook school massacre. That is, I was just talking to you before that. I can't really start to think about it or to describe it right, because when I get the mental pictures, it's too much. It's overwhelming. So that triggered a lot of, my gosh, we can't let this thing happen anymore, so we've got to stop this now. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things, Tom, when you have a disaster like that, and indeed a tragedy, truly the most innocent in our society were taken in that horrific event. Taken by someone who was mentally unstable, who used weapons to kill his mother and then to go to the school and cause all that destruction there. And as a result of that, it's typical with these situations where you have those kind of tragedies, that out of that comes a cry for how do we prevent this before. And this isn't the first time this has happened throughout the United States. As a matter of fact, in 1987 in California, we had a shooting. Patrick Purdy shot kids at a school down in Stockton.
Right. And
out of that came the initial California assault weapon ban that was put forward. And there were some issues with that, even in of itself, because they tried to describe what they would consider as an assault weapon, making those the evil weapons that caused the problem, rather than focusing on Patrick Purdy, his mental state, his criminal aptitude, and those kind of things. And so what you got was weapons that were banned because of particular ways that they looked. For example, putting a bayonet lug on a rifle, or having one on a rifle, having a flash suppressor at the end, having a pistol grip on the weapon. Those were characteristics that would make them a banned weapon. Well, I've been around firearms my entire life, and I know none of those characteristics cause a gun to function any differently or to be more deadly or anything else. It's the weapon in the hands of people who are either mentally deranged or criminally intent on hurting others. And so out of that came some workarounds. The manufacturers worked around that to come up with weapons that avoided those characteristics to get them around it. The other thing it did was the proposal that they were going to ban this came out, and there was a flood on the market. People went out and bought these things by the thousands, feeling that they were going to be banned. So now you flooded a market and created an inflow of these types of weapons into our society that wouldn't have come otherwise except for these proposals. And I can tell you through experience and going to the stores around here and talking to people, the exact same thing has happened as a result of Sandy Hook and the proposals coming out of the White House.
Okay, if I can say something, because it just occurred to me, certainly it's not an original thought, but it just occurred to me that right when something happens almost right after an event, you're usually taking an emotional approach to it. The emotions driving it, that need to say, we can't let this happen anymore. No one wants this to happen anymore. And yet, in our judicial system, we don't put that person to trial. Back in the cowboy days, maybe we did. And we say, oh, let's we know he did it. Let's just take it, and in the heat of the moment, look for justice, quick justice, and a quick result. And yet, politically, sometimes we jump on and try to use all of the emotion to get something, rather than standing back and looking at it and saying, just what's the problem here, and how can we really address the problem, and take care of it in that way, or minimize the damage, if you would.
And I think in California we have done that very well. Aside from the issue with the types of guns and the way that they were configured, there were some rules and laws that came out of that with regards to background checks, mandatory waiting periods for people. Those kind of things have actually paid dividends to the state of California. I can tell you that the California Department of Justice report states that between 2001 and 2010, homicides in California went down 18.9%. That's a significant number. And if you take that number and you look at the number of homicides committed by rifles of all types, and we're looking at assault weapons here, it's about 3.3% of the entire homicides in California were created by rifles of any type, and assault weapons are going to be even smaller percent. If you look at how many homicides were committed by people with their feet and hands, it's 4.1%. Knives is 5.2%. So they're focusing on weapons as the evil cause of the tragedies, when in reality you need to control and make sure who's getting those weapons. Good law-abiding citizens that play by the rules, that don't have criminal records, histories of violence, or mentally unstable. And if those things are put into place and enforced, and you take the guns out of the hands that have them, the people that have them illegally, you're going to reduce those opportunities for things like this to happen. Are you going to eliminate them? I don't believe so, because people with mental illnesses tend to be loners. They tend to be by themselves. They may not expose their problems to others until they act out. And so how do you prevent that from happening? Okay. It's keeping the guns away from them in the first place.
Okay. And of course, loners and people that like to be by themselves aren't necessarily mentally ill.
No, not necessarily. That's
okay.
True.
So that's not mutually exclusive. So, but that is one of the signs, I guess, because it seems like that is the case. There's a suicidal person decides to go out in a way that gives him great fame, or her great fame. Although I think it's mostly males that do this, and
I think that was the case in Columbine. You had two young guys who dressed up and planned this out about how they were going to go out in a blaze of glory. I think that bravado is coupled with a mental problem that gets you there in the first place. But that was part of that. They were out for the fame of being these people.
Let's get back a little bit to why guns. When you were talking, I couldn't help but think, a weapon, a firearm, kind of levels the playing field pretty fast. Against a person with a knife or whatever. I mean, if somebody's going to assault me, it doesn't mean, you can stand off pretty easy a lot of times with a firearm and have that kind of a situation. But I mean, suppose you're a woman at home, defending her children. We just had a case recently, but not getting into that. You don't have to be worried about a big guy like you or whatever, you know what I mean, coming at them, and you're just, how do you defend yourself? So it makes for a great weapon. I think that there's a way that you can quickly go over there and say, so it makes it easy to kill people. In a way, maybe so, but we don't have that many people killing each other in these sort of circumstances, do we?
Not really. I think for all of 2010, there was, if I remember my stats correctly, there's about 1,809 homicides in the state of California of many millions of people. 36% of those were gang-related, for example. The vast majority were done by handguns. And yet you look at what's being targeted, it's not the weapons or the violence that causes the most damage. It's, in fact, some of the weapons that cause the least.
Okay. You must know, do most people defend their homes with a rifle or a handgun?
I think it depends on their comfort level. I know people that have shotguns that they keep. It doesn't require you to be quite as accurate under stress.
That's a great weapon to defend your home with.
It is. Handguns as well, but then there's responsibilities that go along with that. How do you safely store that weapon? How do you keep it away from children? How do you keep it away from other people? How do you keep it from being stolen and getting into the hands of the bad guys?
Right. That's always important too. We have about another minute left. We're talking here about. Well, let's go back statistically. Mm-hmm. Statistically, shootings have been going down. Basically after the Civil War was the high point, and we've been dropping, and we really haven't had you just pointed out, but as for mass killings, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's about 20 to 22 a year statistically.
I don't have those stats. It seems high to me that there would be that type of a number on an annual basis, particularly a mass killing where you have multiple people killed at one time. You may have some that involve family members, but as far as a public-oriented mass killing such as we had at Sandy Hook, Columbine, and some of the others, I think they're relatively rare.
Okay, we're going to be back with Sheriff Ryan, and maybe we'll be talking more when we get back. So stay with us on TSPN.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.